Folks, have you ever felt like you were taking crazy pills? I'm going to go ahead and answer that question for you. Of course you have. Why do I say that? Because we've all gone through the insanity of the past, I don't know, 9 years, feels like 900 years since Donald Trump has entered the scene and has said things that are blatantly false, obviously false, and the media kind of just like gives him a pass on them. We have seen two incredibly talented, experienced, and qualified candidates uh, run for office against this guy and lose. And so, yeah, feeling like you're on crazy pills, that's where I am right now. But my guest today is qualified to determine and to evaluate whether or not he thinks you're on crazy pills. But even more important, he has been focused almost singularly on telling the American public if the man who is about to re-enter office, not only if he's on crazy pills, but is he sinking deeper and deeper into dementia? So I'm very excited to get into this today. I hope you guys are ready for it. I am. Let's go. Story time. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Storytime with BDD. I'm your host, BDD, aka Brooklyn Dad. Happy Friday, you guys. Happy Friday. And boy, am I excited about today's episode. Why? Why is because waiting in the wings is none other than the man who is responsible for heading the most popular show on the Really American YouTube network. It's called Shrinking Trump. And let me just add to the screen here. Um, it is none other than Dr. John Gartner, and his show is extremely popular and well received. And it is an honor and a privilege to have him here with us today. Dr. Gartner, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Well, look, I've got good news and bad news. The,
Start with the good news.
sure. The good news is you're not crazy.
Yes.
The bad news is the world has gone crazy. And that's why people feel like they're taking crazy pills, because it's surreal. And all of this was predicted, by me and others. When we realized that Trump was a malignant narcissist, okay, one of the things that scholars of the Holocaust, particularly Robert J. Lifton, a professor at Yale, who's been a specialist on this for 50 years, when a malignant narcissist takes control of a country, then something called malignant normality sinks in, which is that the delusional monarch's, worldview becomes the conventional wisdom of the society, even though it's insane. And that's the kind of thing that we're seeing. I mean, look, he hasn't even taken office yet, and he's talking about ideas that are clearly grandiose and insane, taking Greenland, taking the Panama Canal, making Canada the 51st state, invading Mexico to get at the cartels. I mean, so he hasn't even taken office yet, right? but he's already threatening war with 4 of our allies. I mean, this would seem like a real satire, right? If I told you there's going to be a movie, right? And here's the short description of the movie. A president-elect, threatens war with Denmark, over his desire to annex Greenland, before taking office. It sounds like a takeoff, like a satire, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what we see with all of his lies as they become normalized and validated through the right-wing, information system. And lo and behold, we have Tommy Tuberville, whatever he is, Teletubby, he's on there saying, oh, well, we got to take the Panama Canal. I mean, we've got to take it because, if we had a war with China, all those Chinese soldiers controlling the Panama Canal, we wouldn't be able to get through and we'd have to go an extra 9,000 miles. So we've got to take it now. So in other words, we've got to start a war with Panama, right, to take control of the canal in case we have a war with China and these non-existent Chinese soldiers that they claim are infiltrating the canal, might interfere with our ships. So that's the reason.
I've heard the one of my favorite words that I've heard in the past, I want to say 3 or 4 months, and it's literally only been 3 or 4 months. It's sane washing.
Yes.
Washing. They've introduced that to criticize our media because the stuff that like I said, crazy pills, like when we're watching TV and he's talking about, whales being driven crazy by windmills, and he goes off on a tangent about Hannibal Lecter and things like that. And the media just kind of just accepts it like it's normal. And hang on a second, the dude literally filleted a microphone in front of millions of people. Not one reporter asked him why. Nobody questioned this. And it's like it's the normalization that it's maddening.
It's maddening, and I'm pretty certain it's going to get much, much worse. First of all, he's going to get much, much worse, right? Both in terms of his dementia, which you mentioned, we haven't really even talked about, which we know is a progressive illness, but also malignant narcissism is also a progressive illness. The more power they get, the more grandiose and sadistically empowered they become. So he's going to become dramatically worse. So as he becomes more and more blatantly worse, the press is going to have to go further and further to sane wash these things. I mean, just taking this thing of seizing Greenland. Okay. Harry and I, my co-host, we've been watching the news, and he said, look, I was watching, 8 experts on CNN or MSNBC discussing the Greenland thing. And finally they got to one person, General Barry McCaffrey, and said, this is insane. I mean, this is an expression of mental illness, right? And he said, finally, someone said it, right? But we're talking about, well, it's a strategic, he's opening a bargaining position, or, he's got some strategy. And it's like, no, this is like, for those of you who are old enough to remember with the Woody Allen movie Bananas. Do you remember Bananas? In Bananas, you're a little too young, maybe.
No, vaguely. That's not the one where he was like in a time machine or something, right?
That's Sleeper, which is also a great movie. But in Bananas, he ends up getting swept up into a South American revolution, mostly because he wanted to sleep with this girl, but then she induces him into the movement. Before you know it, he's a guerrilla, and they win the revolution. Okay, they win the revolution, and then somehow he ends up becoming the president. Okay, and then he has like a manic break, and he starts standing there. Now he's got a big Fidel beard, and he's wearing fatigues, and he's standing on the back, and he's going, from now on, the official language of Bolivia is Swedish. From now on, everybody will wear their underwear on the outside of their clothes. From now on, everyone will wear a beard. Or if you have a beard, you will shave your beard. So it just, and I feel like this, he was making fun of how a mad dictator, right, can just make his madness the law of the land. And this is what malignant normality is about. Now, when it comes to this Greenland thing, it's kind of comical because he's not going to take Greenland. Although in our last show, we always do something funny at the end of the show. So we pretended to be members of the Greenland Liberation Movement, and we we played the Greenland national anthem, and I had taken my green tie and I put it up, I think, like a freedom fighter, and a band we were saying Greenfields, Greenland strong.
Now, actually, let me just take a pause for a second, because one of the things I enjoy so much about your show is your ability to, first of all, your on-screen presence is great. You guys are affable, and it seems like you really enjoy speaking to each other, and you also enjoy the subject matter. But even more important is that you make the subject matter very accessible to guys like me, that I don't have a psychology degree, but you make it you make it very accessible to us, and entertaining as well. What motivated you to go down this path? Because I do recall actually that your Twitter account, am I allowed to say what your Twitter account is?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's duty to warn.
Right.
And you had let me put this up on the screen here. Here we go. So this is your pinned tweet here. It's a 1 out of 20 thread. Over 400 licensed medical and mental health professionals have agreed Trump shows clear signs of probable dementia. But even more persuasive than their signatures on our petition are what they had to say. Only in this long tweet can you read their words verbatim. Obviously, I'm not going to read the thread, but you went on a mission basically to warn. You felt like this overwhelming duty to warn the American public that this guy is batshit crazy and is getting worse, not better, but worse every day. What compelled you to go on this mission?
Well, there's really there's been two phases to my duty to warn career. I was actually the first person to say that Donald Trump was a malignant narcissist, and I said it, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Are we still on there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I just gave you a solo layout.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
I've said it hundreds and hundreds of times. And the reason I knew about this is, if you saw the movie Don't Look Up, I was kind of a Randall Mindy figure. I was just an obscure psychologist who happened to have a specialty in this area. I trained under the one living expert on malignant narcissism, which is really an obscure historical diagnosis Erich Fromm developed to describe Hitler. But I studied with him. And so as a result, I was the one who saw that there was like a meteor heading towards Earth. That if someone who was a true malignant narcissist was a candidate for president, the implications were so destructive and catastrophic, I had a duty to warn the public. And we found like-minded mental health professionals. We became a movement. We had meetings all around the country. We had marches. We reached out to Congress people. We produced an edited book. So that was the first movement. And then Biden got elected. And basically, we all took off our uniforms and went home. I mean, to our day jobs, And then I was actually working on my book about psilocybin therapy, which I'm still working on. But I was working in my garden and reading all of this stuff about them saying that Biden was cognitively impaired, but ignoring the signs of cognitive impairment in Trump. And I had actually written a series of op-eds with some medical personnel, colleagues, about the signs of dementia that Trump was showing in 2009. And so now what I had seen was that he was dramatically worse from 2009. He was, and his rate of deterioration was increasing. So, and I also realized two things. One, that the election might actually turn on this issue of cognitive competence. And as it turns out, I wasn't wrong about that. And secondly, that nobody was taking up our position. Nobody was either defending Biden or attacking Trump on the cognitive competence issue. So that was what really launched me to get back into the mix. And what's interesting is I contacted all the press people, who all the, I mean, you do this something for 4 years, 5 years, you cultivate contacts in the press. So I contacted all the people who had done articles on me before, done articles on the movement, and they didn't want to touch the Donald Trump cognitive fitness issue. It was really interesting. So that's actually what led me to start the podcast with Harry, was that the podcast was some way to get the message out beyond the mainstream media that seemed to be very resistant to covering the story. And it's part of the sane washing that you're talking about, that they were basically cognitively competence washing him. They're making it sound like he wasn't showing breakdowns in his fundamental cognitive functions. All those ways in which he said words that didn't make sense, that weren't English words, that he meandered into all these tangential topics, that he brought up these, crazy things like Hannibal Lecter that you're talking about. There were all of these clear formal indicators of dementia and cognitive decline that were not being acknowledged, or the question wasn't even being asked. So that was one effort that we made to reach out to the people directly and get the message. The other thing was working with George Conway with his Anti-Psychopath Political Action Committee, where we made advertisements that he showed, on stations like Fox in swing states, hoping that we would make a difference.
Sorry, John. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So I just kept talking. I didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing.
That's fine. I'm having an issue with my video right now. But we're fine, actually.
And we're live with all this.
We are absolutely live. That's what happens sometimes in live. I want to ask you, what was your reaction? Because I haven't seen you live actually since I was on your show.
Yeah.
Just before the November 5th election, and I was promoting my book, the Bigliest Loser, ironically and unfortunately named. Because obviously the outcome was not what I was projecting in the book.
No.
So I wouldn't call it devastated. I would call it disappointed in the outcome. What was your reaction to the November 5th election? I think it's important for people who kind of look up to you because of your experience and because of what you do. I think it's interesting for people to hear how you reacted to the loss.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm fully on the devastated side of the equation.
Yeah.
I don't think I could, in a way, be too dramatic in describing how catastrophic an outcome this is. And I really am expecting the worst. And I actually think the worst is going to be worse than people even fear. And one of the problems that we're having with the show, and I think that I am the problem, it's an insoluble problem, is that I'm very frank with the audience about how dire I see things. Now, Harry's more of the optimist. And so actually a lot of people write in the comments like, I feel like it's being at my house. I'm like John, I think it's, the apocalypse, and my husband is more, optimistic. And we talk about this over the dining room table, like the way Harry and I talk about it. So fortunately I have a partner, Harry, who is, more stable and more moderated because I am definitely the prophet of doom. But the other thing that we are trying to do, and this is really important, it's one of the main reasons we're continuing with the show, is that we do feel an obligation to our audience as psychologists to help them cope with what's happening. So every week, almost every week or every other week. Sometimes we have experts, about politics, whatever. But almost every other week we have a therapist on. Just last week we had a woman who is a psychoanalyst and a Tibetan expert in Tibetan Buddhism. We've had a psychiatrist who is a Buddhist monk, to talk to people about how to deal with radical impermanence, how to deal with, if your world is actually being destroyed.
Yeah.
Right. How do you find, equanimity and how do you find joy, or how do you find a connection to the infinite within? How do you find the light within if you are truly entering a time of night?
I'll be honest. I shut down, shut down for review. Like I couldn't deal with I couldn't deal with the news, because the news was just constantly
Sure.
shoving in my face, that he had won, and I had to accept it. I didn't want to become that guy that I had spent 4 years, ridiculing. The guy who was, stop the steal, and like, I understand that on one side, it's that the loss is so difficult to accept, that you're looking for any other reason to make sense of, how did this guy, he was just like blowing a microphone a few weeks ago and talking about Arnold Palmer's dick, and he's convicted now, officially today, convicted of 34 felonies, and the list goes on and on and on of the things that are wrong with this dude.
Yeah.
My brain just could not compute. So I spent some time actually looking for some other reason why he won. But at the end of the day, I did eventually come out of my cocoon of denial. It wasn't long, but yeah, is
I spent a few days curled up in bed in my cocoon, literally.
yeah. Hmm. Um, how concerned are you that America is about to have not only a criminal president, but one who is it one who is descending into dementia, like
Yeah.
without guardrails? At least in his first term, there was some semblance of guardrails, right? There were guys like
Yeah.
General Mark Milley, and all of the generals, basically, and there were other
Sure.
people
And the
in the
chiefs of staff.
administration. Yeah, the chiefs of staff, who kind, they went along with most of the shit, but at the end of the
Mhm.
day, they, even they couldn't continue um to
Yeah.
condone his shit. So how bad, how fucked are we? To
Um,
be frank.
yeah. So on the fucked scale, I would put it at, 95 out of 100.
And we're laughing.
Yeah, people sometimes criticize our inappropriate laughter on the show, but then again, we get more people saying like, I'm glad we can laugh at it. That's the only way we can survive. It's like, look, us Jews have been surviving, with gallows humor for, for generations. Harry and I do jokes about, how we're going to be shuffling into the jail together. Like, remember that scene in Chicken Run when Gene Wilder and who was a block engineer, the guy who lit himself on fire, are entering prison.
Richard
Anyway,
Pryor.
Richard Pryor are entering
Yeah.
prison, and they're going, "We bad, we bad." And I keep
Yeah.
thinking about that scene. It's like when Harry and I have to go to prison for criticizing Trump. It's like I'm getting my we bad, get it together.
Uh-huh.
But I think what actually scares me the most is because I'm not even just scared about what happens to us as Americans. I almost feel like we deserve what we get at this point. But because we're not going to be playing the stabilizing role in the world that we used to play by turning against our allies and towards Putin and essentially aping Putin in this kind of land grab, imperialism, might makes right, law of the jungle. And let's face it, what we don't appreciate is we think what is normal is the lifetime that we've lived. During our lifetime, it's all post World War II. We've lived during the most peaceful, stable, and internationally cooperative era in human history. There's never been a United Nations before. There's never been a sense that an international community would come together to produce stability. All you had were alliances for wars,
Yeah.
right? And so this is what I'm afraid we're going back to now, because if the warlords are ruling the earth, right? If Putin and Xi and Trump, right, are all just grabbing what they can, and might makes right, and lies are truth, right? And we can just say that we must have Panama and Greenland. It reminds me of 1984, where they have this thing, Newspeak, all of this propaganda, and they're always going to war. So it's like, we're at war with Oceania. We've always been at war with Oceania. And then it would be like a few months later, now we're at war with Eurasia, and we're allies with Oceania. We've always been allies with Oceania and at war with Eurasia. We're going to whip up some war fever against the Danes. We're going to start we're going to call them Danish pastries, freedom pastries.
Yet, so all of a sudden, out of left field, he started to say that we need Greenland for national security. He didn't say that at all in the past, I don't know how many years he's been running to be reelected. He didn't mention it one time. So my question is, I guess it's two parts, right? Why now? Why Greenland and Panama Canal? And how seriously should we as Americans and the rest of the world take him? Is this just part of is this just part of his delusions, or does he have some ulterior motives? Is he because he clearly is not serious, or is he?
Well, I think he is, because first of all, it is part of his delusions. He is not in touch with reality. He lives in a grandiose, delusional world. And so he thinks that he can make the Gulf of Mexico magically become the Gulf of America. And that's crazy. Okay. It's just, the whole thing's just crazy from beginning to end. But so that's the thing that's important. I do think, but there's multiple things going on. There's his grandiosity, but also there's the thing about malignant narcissists is they have a sadistically and destroying and harming things and people. So there's a part of him that takes pleasure in throwing people off balance, frightening them, right? Gaslighting them, intimidating them, right? And so he's throwing the world into chaos.
Yeah.
Right? He hasn't even taken office yet. Right. And he's throwing the world into chaos. It's not like he's a hawk and this situation with Greenland's been simmering for a long time, and he's taking a hard line, on the Greenland situation. He's creating it out of whole cloth. Yeah. Literally creating remember Bill Clinton used to go around the world, solving, being a peacekeeper and settling disputes. He should have won the Nobel Prize, frankly, the Peace Prize 5 times over. I say that as a Clinton biographer. I actually went to Ireland to research his role in the Irish peace process, and spoke to Jerry Adams and all the people who actually negotiated, and they all said it was completely Bill Clinton. Without Bill Clinton, that deal never would have happened. But he didn't share the Nobel Peace Prize. It was the guys who negotiated, but he was the guy behind the scenes. Well, now we have the opposite. We have someone who's creating conflict and chaos around the world in places where it doesn't exist. How long can this go on? On our show last week, because of damn copyright restrictions, we couldn't show the whole thing, but we showed a little bit of that famous Charlie Chaplin movie where he plays Hitler. It's the grand dictator, and he has the world. It's a globe, but it's like a balloon, and he's just throwing it up in the air, just casually kicking it, to the sky, just playing with the world, and that's what I feel like Trump's doing. He's just throwing the planet up in the sky, and I'm sorry, brother, my camera's going to pan after me now because there's these hand gestures that make it do that, and it's very hard to make it stop. I haven't learned the hand gestures, so I'm trying to make it stop. But I think it's going to do it. Okay, there you go. But so there's a sadistic pleasure he gets in terrorizing the planet and throwing everything into chaos. And finally, I think his other motivation is he works for Vladimir Putin. Nothing could be simpler. And what does Vladimir Putin want to do? Disrupt the Western alliance, right? Create chaos and division and fear and suspicion, within the Western alliance.
Yeah. Now, I do want to. You mentioned how Bill Clinton should have won the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in bringing peace around the world. We just said goodbye to another former president who actually did win the Nobel Peace Prize. It was President Jimmy Carter. And I'm really curious to hear your take on what happened at the funeral yesterday, because yesterday, I think, in terms of, like, if you were to rate the quality of days for Donald Trump, yesterday was a shit poor day for Trump, because at this funeral he was roundly snubbed. He was snubbed publicly by George W. Bush, by Mike Pence's wife, who not only did she snub him, deliberately snub him, but right afterwards she took great pains to, like, shake Hillary Clinton's hand, who was like 5 seats over her. She reached and stretched, but she didn't want anything to do with the guy who wanted to who was okay with her husband being hung by his followers.
Yeah, I was going to say, usually when people try to murder my spouse, it really kind of puts a downer on the friendship. I don't know if that's been your experience.
Yeah. So how did this affect his psyche? Is he impervious to public humiliation, or did that, because
actually, instead, it's like, remember those old science fiction movies of, like, the Blob or whatever? Like, the more they tried to fire ray guns at it, it would absorb the energy and become, like, more powerful. Okay, he takes that humiliation, and what he's saying is, I'm gonna get you, motherfuckers. You're gonna get yours. You're gonna go to Guantanamo, you pieces of shit. I'm gonna prosecute you. I'm gonna IRS investigate you. I'm gonna audit you. I'm gonna sue you. It's like he is it just stokes his rage and his motivation for revenge.
Now, so here there was another interesting. Here, let me throw this up on the screen there. There's the seating arrangement there. So we've got Hillary seated at number 10, and where's, like, off to the right behind her. She's not numbered, but that's where Mike Pence's wife was. But all the way to the far right of the screen, there's Donald Trump and Melania, but directly to Trump's left, on our left, is President Obama. And much was made of the two of them sitting next to each other, and they seemed friendly. They seemed, like Trump was laughing, when Obama said some things, and Obama was laughing when Trump said some things. And I personally was like, I was like, what the fuck? What is this? What wizardry is making this happen?
I'm happy for President Obama to be socially gracious and appropriate and polite. I think that is part of the dignity of the office. That said, it's the Democrats being too nice, right, that brought us to the apocalypse. So yeah, it does kind of piss me off. We've been so polite when we should have been manning the barricades, and now it's too late.
Yeah, so I'm with you there, but I also I kind of feel like President Obama did that almost to make a point, right? Because
He went high when they went low. Okay, congratulations.
The author of that quote was not even in attendance at the funeral. Michelle Obama was nowhere to be seen because you know what? She cannot hide her disdain of Donald Trump, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think she,
yeah,
she might have
yeah.
said something to
I,
him.
I I think the corollary is when they go low, we'll fight them in the beaches, we'll fight them in the streets, we'll fight them on the airwaves, we'll fight them on fucking Twitter. I mean, the point is like, yeah, we will fight everywhere and anywhere in every way at every time, because this was an existential battle, and we didn't get that.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because literally, I also wanted to ask you that there's been um, there have been people saying do not obey in advance,
Yes.
and this
Yeah.
has been kind of like a knee jerk reaction to watching like the CEO of the LA Times, show his belly and kind of kowtow, and Jeff Bezos do the same thing. And let me just put up on the screen here.
I'm
You
glad
know,
you're showing that cartoon.
one person who
You
would
showed it
not
too.
obey in advance was this artist, Ann Telnius. Is that how
Hmm.
you pronounce her last name? Yeah.
Well, I'm bad with pronunciations, but yes, her.
Yeah. Um, but on the other hand, there's been Senator John Fetterman, right? And John Fetterman is that guy that a lot of us went to bat for when he was, on the mend and recovering from his stroke, and Republicans were attacking him, and we were like, "Screw you!" Blah blah blah. But now John Fetterman appears to be extending an olive leaf, and he
Mhm.
has said, like, he's going to listen. He's going to listen to he's going to entertain Trump's nominees for the cabinet, and he's not going to affect an adversarial stance. And if he is a United States senator, during normal times, you do
Right.
expect this kind of
I think that's
behavior.
what's so sad. I think that's so sad is that now what seems like, hey man, get real. What are you, some kind of, sucker or traitor? It's like, oh, actually, this used to be normal, genteel behavior. But this is
Yeah.
how our government is broken down, right? I mean, the Senate used to be a place where actually it was intentionally meant to be the kind of, more educated, more calm, more deliberative, more fair-minded people who with the longer perspective. That's what they're there for 6 years, and it's a smaller club so that they could engage with each other and be friends and actually hammer things out over drinks or whatever. I mean, that was when our system was working. That's when it wasn't all uh, trench warfare, all partisan trench warfare, because there was this idea that we had a loyalty to the country that was greater than our loyalty to the party. I don't know if you remember this, but it used to be when we would lose an election and say the other party would become president, everyone would say, Mr. President, I'm sorry, I'm sorry my party didn't win, but we will do everything we can to make your presidency successful. And everyone would come together, right? And try to basically say, what party schmarty, you're the president, then we're going to, we all want you to be successful, um, remember that? Remember that?
Yeah,
Remember
I
when
did.
we didn't criticize when partisanship ended at the water's edge, that you would never criticize the foreign policy of the existing president, all of these ways in which we had a loyalty to the country that is now it's just all no holds barred partisan warfare. And that's why the Democrats seem naive when they say, oh, we're going to reach across the aisle, we're going to work together. That's why Biden seemed naive, because he was still practicing the rules. Biden was a great 20th century president.
Mhm.
The problem was he was a president of the 21st century.
21st Yeah, yeah. Let's shift gears a little bit, and let's touch on what happened today, right? So first of all, what happened last night? I should back up. What happened last night was that the Supreme Court, we learned, was stepping aside and
Yeah.
in a 5-4, very tight 5-4
Right.
decision,
Right.
they were going to allow um, the sentencing against him in New York to proceed. And
Mhm.
Trump, I'm sure, thought he had it in the bag because let's
Right.
be honest, it's a 6-3 majority, and
Right.
three of them he put on the Supreme
Right.
Court himself. So lo and behold, one of those people he put on the bench,
Mhm.
Amy Coney Barrett,
Right.
sided with Justice Roberts and the three other liberal justices
Mhm.
on the court in
Yeah.
saying, "Yeah, go ahead and sentence that fucker." you know,
Yeah.
so how
It's
big of a
interesting.
hit is that to to Donald Trump's ego that his own Supreme Court
Mhm.
justices betrayed him?
Oh, sure, it's a hit to his ego. I think it does show a glimmer of hope, right? That looks like Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett are swing justices, that they have some shred of a conscience left in their bodies, right?
Yeah.
There's some glimmer of morality and some glimmer of wanting to hold on to the Constitution, to not rip it to shreds and light it on fire, right? The other four, not so much.
Right, right. Agreed. Um, and then uh, today was the day that he was finally sentenced. And it wasn't a big deal, because it was an
Yeah,
unconditional
I know.
release, meaning
Yeah.
basically no jail time, no probation, no nothing.
No fine.
However, he
Yeah.
will forever wear the label of convicted felon, at least until
Yeah.
his lawyers appeal the sentence, and that could or that may or may not um, happen in a year or so. Um, but so um, how does this label convicted felon does it get under his skin? Is this taking away some of his mojo? How does this affect his overall mental state that he didn't win this thing?
Oh, well, he's gonna be enraged and fuming about it and, and looking for revenge, I mean, look for him to try to go after Judge Marchand, who basically gave him no consequence, or Marchand's daughter or, Marchand, like Jack Smith or whatever,
Whatever.
he's on the list. Gilbert and Sullivan. I've got a little list. I've got a little list of people who won't be missed.
You like the musicals, huh?
Yeah, right. If only I could carry a tune, then I might be able to pull it off.
Um, and so then there's, in addition to that, the 11th Circuit also determined that Jack Smith's special report can be released. Um,
At least the not Florida part.
what's that?
Not the part having to do with the Florida documents case. That's still being they've
Right, right. I
separated those.
believe it's the election interference.
Yes.
So again, are these things like losses that are adding up, that are penetrating his Teflon armor?
I hate to say it again, I'm always the downer. Um, I don't I mean, I see these as pathetic kind of moments. No, I mean, I don't want to take away from the fact that, first of all, the two Supreme Court justices did side against him. That is very important. So it does give you hope that when push comes to shove, right? When they're really just deciding, like, look, should we just murder the Constitution? Yes or no? that there there might be two votes. They'll say, well, like John McCain going thumbs down at the last minute, they'll spare the baby. But the fact that there's no consequence, right? Okay, fine, you're a felon. Okay, you know what? It feels like nothing matters anymore. They knew he was a felon when they elected him, right? There was a very funny Saturday Night Live takeoff when Robert Holt, some guy playing Robert Holt, remember Robert Holt did that interview about Russia and Comey, and he said, "So did you fire Comey because of Russia?" Right, because that was the whole charge. Right? If he fired Comey because of Russia, right, then it's like total obstruction of justice. And Trump says, yeah, I fired him because of Russia.
Oh, yeah, Lester Holt.
And Lester Holt kind of goes like, wait, you're saying you fired him because of the Russia investigation? Yeah, well, that's right, because it was just bullshit, and it just had to stop. And then in the Saturday Night Live version, Holt looks to the camera and goes, "Oh, I forgot. Nothing matters anymore."
That's right. That's right.
And that's right. Like, oh, so he's a convicted felon. Okay. And, that and 50 cents will get you on the subway, as we used to say when I was a kid. It's like, it doesn't fucking matter. And that's what I find so depressing. Okay, the Jack Smith report is going to be released. Oh, you mean like the Mueller report? Well, that's going to sure shake things up, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so I tweeted about it a little earlier today, the Jack Smith report, and basically, the trolls and the Trumpers were like, yeah, and there's nothing gonna happen. He's still gonna be your president. Let me ask you,
but it will help them itemize the people who have to be taken away, because they'll have them all in the documents, so that'll help organize the bus route.
With your fatalistic view of the next 4 years that nothing matters, how do Democrats, liberals, progressives, how do we survive this next 4 years? What is the preferred mental attitude that we need to adopt in order to survive?
I want to quote Jennifer Rubin and her with something she said on her podcast, the Green Room. She was talking about some of these journalists who are being attacked, both like ABC and Washington Post, but also individuals like Olivia Troy, who's being sued by Kash Patel because she dared to say on CNN that he wasn't qualified to be the director of the FBI, which he isn't. He's more qualified to be arrested by the FBI. He's implicated in the documents case, by the way. He's a co-conspirator in the documents case, Kash Patel. So his sole experience with espionage is as a agent against the United States, because that whole documents case was basically espionage and treason. We still don't know who has those documents, but I guarantee that they're all in Moscow. And that Trump got paid for it. So I think that this is, it's very dangerous.
So what do we do, Doctor?
Well, I think but I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What she was saying. Thank you for cueing me there. Because I'm older, so I need that help. What she was saying is that we have to circle the wagons and protect each other. In other words, an attack on one is an attack on all, because what they're doing is they're picking us off one by one. One of the reasons that people are surrendering in advance is because they feel vulnerable, right? And people are saying, well, wait a minute. If Trump decides he wants to get me, he can hurt me this way. He can hurt me this way. In other words, basically, what he's established is not a rule of law, but a rule of extortion. We know that Meta, right, has recently bent the knee, right? They're saying they're getting rid of all content analysis, and they're moving their content. They're moving from California to Texas, so they'll have red state people doing content moderation. And he's explicitly saying, President Trump's election shows that we need to change our way of doing things, and we have to get rid of censorship. And So he's bowing a knee, right? Because he's afraid of, as Lyndon Johnson said, if you have their balls in your pocket, their hearts and minds will follow. So now he's making a very sincere expression of why he's getting back to his roots, with this all holds barred, kind of approach. But Trump was asked in his press conference, about Meta, and he said, "Well, Meta, they're coming a long way. They're doing a lot better." And one of the reporters said, "Do you think Meta changed its policies because you threatened them?" And he says, "Yeah."
Mhm. Yeah.
So he's openly saying this is the Godfather era,
Yep.
right? That this is the same as walking into a butcher shop and saying, "You're going to pay us, $10,000 a month, or, bad things are going to happen to you in your store. And so you'll do it. You'll do it."
That is the distinct feeling I got when he started talking about how Greenland needed our protection. Like, I never even heard a peep out of Greenland saying, "Oh, please come and protect us." Never heard that at all. And he said, not only did he say that Greenland needed our protection, but he was also like, "And we're not doing it for free either." Like, so you could have forced them to take our protection. Who are we protecting them from? Us? We're going to pay you to protect us from
Yeah.
you?
Oh, well, Don Jr. did a listening tour, in Greenland, and he claimed that it's a large native population actually in Greenland. So he was saying that the Danes are racist and discriminating against the Greenlanders, telling them to go back where they came from and treating them like second-class citizens, like, because, of course, we MAGA fights racism wherever they find it. And thank God someone has finally brought attention to the plight of the people of Greenland.
They get mad when you even mention the word racism. Yeah, I don't believe that for 1 second. I also I saw something, a report saying that like they had a photo opportunity there, a bunch of people that were brought into like a bar or something, and they put MAGA hats on them. Like, most of those people were homeless, and they paid them to come in and get a free meal and some clothes and a free MAGA hat, and
Right.
yeah.
No, don't you understand? There is a grassroots movement in Greenland. There's a MAGA movement that says they will greet America as liberators.
It's crazy. That's crazy. What else is crazy? I want to say, on the subject of crazy, is how subservient Donald Trump has appeared with Elon Musk. I mean, even there was I wish I had the video clip with me, but there is a clip where Donald Trump is speaking to a crowd, and he's explaining how Elon Musk can't be president. He says they're saying that he's going to be the real president, and, well, guess what? He can't, because he wasn't born here. So,
Right.
like that was the most surreal moment I've ever seen him, because he wasn't full of like braggadocio, or he was just, normally you would expect him to say, what is he, crazy? I'm the president. He was like, oh, he can't because of rules. Like, what is happening? What is happening with Donald Trump and Elon Musk?
It's an excellent question. And I think that it's a question of profound importance, actually, because I think what's happening here is a very, very dangerous and evil kind of a duo. Harry is the first one. I always want to credit him with this idea, but he said that Trump is outsourcing his brain to Elon Musk. I think Trump knows at some level that he is experiencing dementia. He really can't put two thoughts together. He just rambles. It makes no sense. He can't even undertake any of these schemes that he's talking about. He can't even understand them. Okay. But The point is that Elon Musk does. And Elon Musk is very able, and he knows how to implement a strategy. So I think of it sort of like Star Wars. Remember the evil emperor, right? But he never did anything. He was always just kind of wizened and kind of old and there, right? But he would give kind of orders. But they say in this with the Siths, there'd always be this duo. One would be like the emperor, and the other would be like his champion, like his knight, right? And that's who Darth Vader was. And he's the one, the general who leads the battles, and he's very able and right. I feel like Elon Musk is Darth Vader to Trump's emperor. So in other words, he's, the emperor just kill all the planets, but then Darth Vader's the guy who actually has to go do it.
Oh man, I will never watch Star Wars the same ever again.
Yeah.
Not to watch that again. But that was that's actually an excellent analogy. I kind of felt like Elon Musk all along had this plan to use his money to buy the election, essentially. Because I mean, he himself spent $250 million on that seat. I would think out of everybody else, they say like, those donors, people who donate money, they expect something in return. He gave not only just 250 million, but he made sure that Twitter was reconfigured to favor Donald Trump and his acolytes. So that in-kind gift, who even knows what dollar value to be placed on that? So I think it's more of like the Elon Musk show. I think he is commandeering that seat, whether Trump likes it or not.
Well, I'll tell you why I think Trump likes it. Aside from the dynamic we just described, which is that Musk is going to get it done for him because he can do he has that kind of executive functioning. Okay. I think Musk is, remember, Donald Trump is a pretend billionaire. Elon Musk is a real billionaire. In fact, the richest man on the planet, if you exclude Vladimir Putin, because we don't know what he has in his hidden accounts. Okay. So I think what Elon Musk is saying, so at some level, he admires the richest man in the world. And I think what Elon Musk is saying to him is, listen, buddy, because, he's moved into Mar-a-Lago, Elon Musk. You know that he's staying in there's a name for the Banyan Suite or something. It's like 300 feet from Trump's residence, and he's having breakfast, lunch, and dinner with him. He's sitting in on meetings with all kinds of people, meetings about staffing decisions, on phone calls with foreign leaders. And part of what he is saying is, look, I'll show you how to monetize the presidency. I'll show you how, Donald, I'm not just going to make you a billionaire. I'm going to make you a trillionaire. And the way they're going to do it is, aside from the usual sort of sweetheart deals and corrupt contracts, is it's all about crypto. So Donald Trump has said that the American Treasury is going to start buying cryptocurrency so that we'll have a strategic reserve of cryptocurrency and that we'll be the world leaders in crypto. Well, who do you think's we know that cryptocurrency, this is my personal view, cryptocurrency is essentially a Ponzi scheme. Right? It has no value other than if you're a kidnapper or a drug dealer, or you run a crypto exchange so you can steal everyone else's crypto. But other than that, it really has no value. It's just a Ponzi scheme. But the best way to make money with a Ponzi scheme is to set up a bunch of designated buyers. So if the government is going to start buying crypto, what's going to happen to the price of crypto? Up, 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 right? And so who owns crypto, right? Elon Musk is Dogecoin, but he's probably got a whole portfolio of crypto. And now Trump has started his own line of crypto. And so they're all going to get rich with crypto. And so this idea that we're creating a strategic reserve of crypto. Yeah, that's right. So, if there was ever a national emergency, right, and we needed to draw on our resources, there's nothing we need more than a string of random numbers. I mean, that's all it is, right? So in an emergency, if we had to draw on our resources, that's all that's going to be. The cupboard's going to be bare because they're going to have already made out with all the money. They're basically sucking money out of the government through this crypto scheme.
All right. What's the what's the good news, Doc? what
The good news is if you meditate or you do psilocybin therapy, you can get in touch with the light of consciousness within that is indestructible. I think the good news is a spiritual message, because in this world, we are in the shadow of the valley of death, and it's not going to go well.
Well, if I'm hearing you correctly, and I think I am, what we are looking at is basically the United States is going to be ransacked,
Right.
and grifted into oblivion. So, what then does America look like 4 years from now, and what will it take for Democrats to reclaim the the steering wheel?
Well, I'm very worried about that, because we don't want this to be the 1,000-year Reich. That this regime is going to be in power for some time, and I think that one of the things that makes me very pessimistic is I believe that for all of our soul searching about, oh, we had the wrong message, oh, we did this wrong, oh, we did that wrong, that
Yeah.
structurally they're controlling the communication system now in a way where they're just able to brainwash people, period. If you can make half the country believe that the election was stolen, then who knows, but before you know, we're going to have people burning Danish flags in the street. But because
We're not far from that.
they can make you believe anything. They can make you believe anything. And so that's the thing is, I feel like, and it's getting worse, right? Elon Musk bought Twitter. Liberty Media bought CNN. Springer bought Politico. Sinclair bought the Baltimore Sun. All I'm saying is that, and now Meta is bending the knee. And so what I'm saying is they're taking, if this were chess, right? They're taking our pieces off the board, or they're co-opting them. They're taking control of them. I think CNN to me is one of the more nefarious examples, because CNN isn't going hard right, but they are tacking right. And so the thing is, that just makes all these things, so that's where you have people going, well, taking Greenland, it could be some kind of clever strategy. Well, we need Greenland. I'm sorry. So then finally one guy goes, are you guys all insane? This guy's nuts, but he's just the little, the little voice.
I just have to read this comment.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. Meredith Powell writes, I love how JD Vance has been relegated to basically being a decorative bathroom soap. Where the hell is JD Vance? He's, it does feel like, and I've seen memes of President Musk, Vice President Trump, and Vance is nowhere to be seen at all.
No. He's still trying to figure out, what to order at the donut shop.
Are you okay with taking a few questions from?
Sure. Happy to.
So, folks in the audience there, if you have any real questions for the good doctor while I've got him on the show, please put them in the comments here, and we'll ask him. And what I want to ask you is, how are Americans going to keep their sanity with this like fire hose of crazy kind of spraying?
I really do think that's the question of the hour. I think that's the question of the hour. Understandably, my family was always obsessed with the Holocaust. I was always obsessed with it. And one of the questions that used to haunt me was like, how can a whole society go crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, just how does that happen? I mean, Germany was a very civilized people. They had a democracy. They had high culture. Like, okay, they had some anti-Semitism, but who doesn't have a little anti-Semitism? But the point is they were a functioning society. And actually Jews were very much a part of that society at all levels. And so now I'm starting to see how that process can actually happen, right? And that's what's really, I think, frightening. And so to maintain your sanity, right, when the world is actually going insane, is a different kind of mental health problem than the ones that we've been normally facing. Let's be honest, right? I mean, if most people, when they come to a therapist, they're talking about their personal traumas and circumstances. They're not talking about this macro societal, but this is like Elie Wiesel's night. You know what I mean? I believe we're entering into a dark, dark era. And talked about the Democrats. Part of what I'm afraid of is they're going to get such control of the electoral system. And they're so corrupt, right? They're so dishonest that they have no morality. It's all about winning. They've already started this process. Remember when, Sidney Powell was going to the election, they was going to Colorado. That Tina Peters is in jail now for letting, her, have access to all the voting software and, similar things. And, the Arizona cyber ninjas, that whole audit was bullshit. But meanwhile, they had like 6 months to go through the guts of every aspect of the voting apparatus. Well, don't you think that was uploaded to some, right-wing, operatives or some Russians, And so I'm not sure we're going to get another free and fair election. I'm actually more inclined to think we won't get another chance than to believe that we will. Maybe in the congressional elections, but I think by the time we get to the next presidential election, how everything with them is either a confession or a projection. Well, it's gonna be rigged, folks. It's gonna be rigged. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it.
It's because they're planning to rig it.
Exactly. And now they'll be in a position to do it.
Yeah. Question from Jenny Rayner asks, what would you call a patient who wants revenge on people they think have wronged them? What would you call a patient who wants revenge on people who they think have wronged them?
Well, I think that's a very common psychological issue that people face. Somebody once said, hatred is like trying to kill someone else by poisoning yourself. I think revenge is a normal human emotion, but one of the reasons that we try to get people to meditate, right, and gain some distance from their emotions is to have some mindfulness to be able to say, okay, I have that impulse, I have that feeling. That's a feeling. That's a human experience, but I don't have to act on it. I can just allow myself to experience what that feeling feels like and let it pass.
Here's another one. Here's one from Meredith Powell, who wants to know, how do you really think mass deportations are going to work, and will they?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I believe that immigrants are the new Jews in this Fourth Reich. And they're going to be rounded up and put in concentration camps. He ran on this. I don't know if people remember this or realize this, but the child separation policy was one of the few things that really kind of shocked the conscience of the country, and they put some brakes on that with him. But while he was doing that, he had built out. His plan was to build out concentration camps in the desert that would hold 250,000 illegal immigrants. And actually, I don't like to call them illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants, who, by the way, make up 4% of our population. These are our neighbors. Okay, in the Christian sense of the word, these are our neighbors, and in the concrete, actually literal sense of the word, these are our neighbors. I think that it's going to be Hitlerian. Now, one thing that we did a sequence on the show, because Harry's always trying to be the more positive one, where it was actually a Wall Street Journal documentary showing how expensive and unwieldy it is to actually deport and process this many illegal immigrants, that, it would just cost like 1,000 times more money than we have, and they'd have to hire 20,000 more immigration judges. Like, in other words, it's actually like building the wall, actually beyond their actual capacity to do it. that the money and the expense and the personnel they would need is really going to be a real rate limiter on how quickly they can process people in this Nazi-esque way. However, that said, right, at whatever rate, I mean, in some ways you could be very objective about it. And it's like one of those questions for, the SATs, if they can arrest 1,000 illegal immigrants a day, right? And there are 500 border agents, how long will it take for them to fill the concentration camp with 500,000 prisoners? It's like, so now we know that the funnel is a little bit, reduced. Although actually one of the things that was interesting about the documentary is that the choke point is actually at the processing, right? Because they said they would literally have to hire 20,000 more immigration judges. So what do you think they're going to do? They're going to incarcerate them in the camp while they're waiting to be adjudicated. So they're basically going to be living there permanently. And we're going to be creating a Gaza in like Arizona. Okay, or Texas. We're going to creating a refugee camp of innocent people who will be living there, whatever, for the duration. Okay, and here's the question: how is America going to respond? Are we going to defend these people? I don't think we are going to do a very good job of defending them. But this is what I mean about, when people said, well, when Hitler came for the homosexuals, I didn't say anything because I wasn't homosexual. When he came for the, dissidents, I didn't say anything. Then when he came for the Jews, I didn't say anything. It wasn't a Jew. And then when they came for me, there was no one left to say anything. I think that getting back to Jennifer Rubin's idea, we need to protect each other. What about protecting our neighbors, these immigrants, right? Are we just going to watch them rounded up, and thrown into buses?
I don't think so. I think we've already seen several governors. I know for a fact, I think J.B. Pritzker was one of them. I think Gavin Newsom was another. There are certain governors that have already stepped forward and said, fuck you, you got to go through us, kind of thing.
Yeah, they're threatening to arrest those governors.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, there are enough people who will step up and, I've seen some shitty things happen, including the re-election of this jackass, but I've also seen the good side of America. And I have to, go all the way back to 9/11, when I remember people kind of coming together.
Sure.
And it didn't really matter so much who was Democrat and who was Republican then. And I think if such a thing like these mass deportations happen, and I have no faith that they're going to only deport undocumented immigrants. I think they're going to end up deporting people who are here legally, who have some legal status here. They're going to deport them anyway. That's
talked about it.
Guaranteed. So I don't think I think there are too many good people left in America for that to go off without a hitch. I think there are going to be some hitches, and I think there's going to be some resistance there. And ultimately, like I asked you earlier, where are we going to be 4 years from now? And I remember you saying that, there used to be a time when we used to hope for the president in power to be successful because we believed that president had our citizens' best interests at heart. And I don't think that our current incoming president has our best interest at heart. I think he's a greedy motherfucker, and he just wants the rich to get richer, and he wants to be one of those rich getting richer. So, I think the only way Democrats reclaim, the steering wheel is that Donald Trump's agenda has to fail. His Agenda 47 or his Project 2025, all that shit has to fail miserably. I think his tariffs have to blow up in his face. I think his mass deportations have to blow up in his face. I think inflation has to go crazy high enough for people to scream, "What the fuck? Why are my eggs $18?"
Yeah. You want expensive eggs? We'll give you expensive eggs. I mean, the thing about the tariffs is they're a tax on the poor.
Yeah.
It's a way of redistributing wealth from the, he's like the Robin Hood of the bizarro world. His job is to steal from the poor and give to the rich.
Yeah.
And the tariffs do that, because tariffs are a sales tax, basically, right, on everything we buy, and it's regular people that buy stuff. So they're the ones going to Costco and Walmart and buying the stuff. So it becomes a regressive tax. In other words, instead of a progressive tax where the rich pay more, it's actually a regressive tax where the poor pay more.
Yeah. So I think going back to that thing people have been saying, do not obey in advance. I think there's enough of us who are ready to fight back and stand up
Are
for what
there enough of us?
I think there are. At the end of the day, yeah, look, I've seen Lucy pull the football away from me enough times that I'm not completely optimistic and, without any cynicism in my bloodstream. I know that whatever can go wrong will go wrong. But I think in order for us to survive, we need hope. We need something to hang our hat on, some reason to get out of bed tomorrow, and that reason is that we can do something about this bullshit. We have fought Trump before and we can fight him again. And I don't care if he's got a billion, the richest man on earth. He's a moron. Elon Musk is a fucking moron at the end. I don't know if you saw what he said about C-sections, people who were delivered by C-section have bigger brains or something because they didn't go through the birth canal. I'm like,
well, here's the thing. I think Elon Musk is a little crazy, which is part of what's really frightening. And it's sort of like the Star Wars thing. They're both evil, right? They're both part of the evil force, the evil side of the force. Elon Musk I think he's Asperger's or on the autistic spectrum. I also think he's bipolar. And I also think he has a personality disorder. And that's just a start. Okay. So he's doing crazy shit. Okay. He's posting crazy shit. I mean, we showed it on the show. Somebody said something critical of him and he said, F you, retard. It's like,
yeah.
Like what the fuck? I mean, this is the person who's advising the president. Now it's okay to call people fucking retards again. I mean,
And then he went and posted, we need more positivity on the site.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's all their doublespeak. We want free speech, but then they suppress the liberal speech, and it's all it's like 1984. Truth or lies. Good is evil. It's just everything's just the upside down version of what it is.
Dr. John Gartner, I want to thank you. So I can't thank you enough for joining me on Storytime with BDD. It is a true honor. Always a pleasure. We could both sit here and kick the Willy Bobo for another hour or two.
Sure.
But it is Friday night, and my regular viewers know that means it's pizza and movie night, and the pizza is not going to get cold on my watch, buddy.
All right. Well, don't let me keep you from the pizza. Don't let that pizza get cold.
Thank you again so much, and I hope I can have you back on the show.
I'd love to. It's been fun.
Just hold tight. Just hold tight while I sign off. Thank you. And folks, thank you for joining me again for another episode of Storytime with BDD. I'm your host, BDD, aka Brooklyn Dad. And I look forward to, I want to remind you all to please, if you have not hit the like button, please do so. And also hit the subscribe button. And I look forward to seeing you all here. Same place, same time. I love you all. Peace.